Hi everyone. So let's talk about AW Dynamite. So yes, guys. Hi everybody. Like I said again, let's talk about AW Dynamite from July 22nd, which I thought was a great show. Can't wait to talk about this, guys. This was the go home show to Redemption. So let's talk about it. We are live at Excalibur and Tony Giovanni and Taz. Great audience at home before we head over to a video of Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay chatting with one another backstage. And John Moxley persents enters and says there is no dissent in the room. Then we had Kevin Knight versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship that opened in the show, and it was amazing. It was an amazing match. Let's talk about it, guys. Darby Allin rains down right hands on Kevin Knight and delivers a Spanish fly to Kevin Knight from the crowd and over the barricade into the ring side area before flying off the top of the ring post and into himself. And Kevin Knight crashes over the timekeeper's table, and the bell rings to officially kicks off the match. And Kevin Knight sends Darby off the entrance ramp into one of the barricades ground first, and he delivers a back elbow to send Darby Allin crashing onto the floor off the barricade, then sends him crashing into the ring steps face first and fires off right hands on him inside the ring. Then Kevin Knight sits Darby onto the top rope and joins him up there, but Darby delivers a cold red to him off the bottom rope and lands a second one on him, and he jams Kevin Knight's arm into the top of the ring post and fires off a few hammer ascents elbows on him, then lands a coffin drop on him onto the outside again. Lands a coffin drop on him outside the ring of off the top rope. I'll repeat it again, guys. On him, then lands a coffee drop on him outside the ring off the top rope. Then back from the break, Kevin Knight accidentally sends Darby crashing into the ref, and he levels Darby with a clothesline and realizes the ref is down, then grabs his TNT Championship belt from the ring side area and brings it into the ring with him. And Kevin Knight looks to hit Darby with the TNT Championship belt, but Darby sees him coming and delivers a scorpion death drop. I was thinking a scorpion death drop to Kevin Knight, and Darby catches up the TNT Championship belt and dumps him back down before he can and uses it in a sense up the ropes. But Kevin Knight clocks him from behind and hits him with the TNT Championship belt. And Kevin Knight lands a coast to coast on Darby and pulls the ref back inside the ring and ascends back up to the top rope and delivers the UFO splash on Darby for the win. And that's how Kevin Knight retained the TNT Championship. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, that was a loud noise. If you didn't hear me, I'm sorry, but I'll repeat where I was back at if you want to. But yeah, guys, back from the break, Kevin Knight accidentally sends Darby crashing into the ref, and he levels Darby with a clothesline and realizes the ref is down and grabs his TNT Championship belt from the ringside area and brings it into the ring with him. And Kevin Knight looks to hit him, Darby, with the TNT Championship belt. If you guys can still hear me with that noise. I guess you guys could hear me from that, so I won't repeat myself. So then after the match, Kyle Fletcher and Okada and the rest of the Don Callis family made their way out to speak with Renee Paquette and hype up Mark Davis and Kevin Knight. And Kyle Fletcher respectfully matches for the National Championship and AEW World Championship and International Championship at Redemption. And Kyle Fletcher notes that he plans on talking to Tony Khan to make sure everything is banned from ringside for his redemption match and his upcoming tag match. And then we had Kyle Fletcher and Okada versus Brody King and Bandito, and everyone else is banned from ringside. So yes, guys, is barred from ringside. So yes, this was a great tag match with Kyle Fletcher and Okada versus Brody King and Bandito. We'll talk about that here in a bit, guys. Sorry about the whole noise racket that's going on. I gotta talk to one of my people, so I'll be right back. So okay, I'll talk about this now, guys. Sorry about that whole stuff, but it is what it is. Things happen, so yeah. So Kyle Fletcher and Bandito begin the action, and the bell rings, and the two lock up, and Bandito lands an arm drag and a drop kick on Kyle Fletcher, then tags out to Brody King, and Brody King and Bandito whip Kyle Fletcher into the corner and fire off clotheslines on him, then delivers a double chop to him, and Bandito sends Kyle Fletcher bouncing off the top rope face first, and then lands a splash to him off Brody King's shoulder, and Brody King follows it up with a suicide to Kyle Fletcher, then delivers a chomp to him before Bandito lands a roll barrel on Kyle Fletcher. Then Brody King delivers a chomp to Kyle Fletcher into the corner, then tags out to Bandito. Then Okada tags in on his side and doubles teams on Brody King with Kyle Fletcher in the corner, then lands a double tuplex on Brody King with Kyle Fletcher, and Bandito goes after Okada and Fletcher, but the two men level Bandito and shake hands with one another as a show of respect. Then back from the break, Brody King fires off clotheslines on Kyle Fletcher, and Okada assists corners, and Okada catches Brody King with a shoulder shoulder breaker. I was thinking a shoulder breaker, but Kyle Fletcher tags in and lands a kick on Brody King in the corner and sets up for a brainbuster, but Brody King ascends it and sends Kyle Fletcher crashing into the mat, and Bandito tags it, but Kyle Fletcher delivers a snap dragon suplex to him, but Bandito pops up and Fletcher and sends him crashing into the mat face first, and Brody King tags in and lands a cannibal. Also again a cannibal. Also, I'll just say that a cannibal on Kyle Fletcher into the corner, and but Bandito tags in and lands a frog splash on Kyle Fletcher off the top rope, and Okada looks to land a rainmaker on Brody King, but accidentally hits Kyle Fletcher, and Brody King flies out of the ring to level Okada onto the outside, and Bandito catches Kyle Fletcher in the ring with the 21 plex for the win, and that's how Brody King and Bandito defeated Kyle Fletcher and Okada, which was a great tag match. I loved it, guys, in my opinion. Then after the match, Okada, also again, after the match, Okada accidentally to Kyle Fletcher onto the outside, and despite acting indifferently in the ring when he. Okay, I'm back, guys. After the match, Okada accidentally to Fletcher onto the outside and despise acting indifferent in the ring when he hits Kyle Fletcher with the Rainmaker. And Kyle Fletcher yells at Okada, but Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis and Lance Archer and Don Callis end up in a stare down with Brody King and Bandito, and Andrade Elo makes his way out to even the odds as he still sports MJF's Dynamite Diamond Ring. Then we had Tekla and Willow Nightingale meet with one another ahead of their AEW Women's World Championship redemption match, which I thought this whole statement was good with Mick Foley. Let's talk about it, guys. I love this statement. Let's talk about it. Mick Foley introduces Tekla and she makes her way out, and Tekla gloats about being the AEW Women's World Champion and 1/3 of the Artists of Stardom's champions, and then calls to get the show on the road. Then Willow makes her way out, and Mick Foley asks if she's ready for for the text at hand. I was thinking the text at hand, and Willow Nightingale says she is, and then says she came back from a shoulder injury to win a number one contender Casino Gauntlet match to consider the right to challenge Tekla, which she won that at Beach Break, guys. You can go back and watch Beach Break. So yeah, guys, Beach Break. That's how she got into being the number one contender, and then we already talked about Redemption already, guys. You can go back and watch my review about that. So yeah, but carry on. Let's talk about this, guys. So yeah, then I'll say it again. So number one contender Casino Gauntlet match pursues the rights to challenge Tekla for the AEW Women's World Championship at Redemption, and she says her dream since joining AEW has been to win the AEW Women's World Championship. But Tekla says Willow Nightingale is talking to the toxic one and says she's not buying Willow Nightingale positive act, and she says Willow Nightingale puts an act when she comes to the ring and balls up her feelings, but once again balls up her feelings by putting on a mask, and she says she's poisoned inside and will show the world that poison. Then Willow Nightingale says, unlike Tekla, she will never had to convince people of who she is, and she says Tekla's toxic act is a fade. Well, she acts through, and she really just feels small inside. And she says Tekla has swagger and has got her 2 belts, but says she only cares about the AEW Women's World Championship, and Tekla is a shortcut to get to it. And Mick Foley and Mick Foley, or since before things between Tekla and Willow Nightingale get personal, then says he sees a lot of himself in Willow Nightingale. Then Tekla tells Mick Foley to be quiet, but Willow Nightingale tells Tekla that enough disrespect and says Mick Foley is both her favorite and a legend, and she says herself and Mick Foley have stopped at nothing to get what they want and isn't afraid to get hardcore at Redemption. And she says both herself and Tekla want to walk into All In as AEW Women's World Championship, and says she also again Tekla wants to walk into All In as AEW Women's World Champion, then says she will pour all of herself into the redemption match to make sure she holds the title walking into All In. Then Tekla says when she stands over Willow Nightingale with the AEW Women's World Championship at Redemption with clouds, rainbows, and bloody up, and Willow Nightingale should remember to smile anyways. Else again, Willow Nightingale should remember to smile anyways and hit Willow Nightingale with one of her gloves. Then Tekla and Willow Nightingale look to brawl, but Mick Foley tries to keep the two women apart. Then Tekla levels Willow Nightingale and removes the belt from the waist of her pants, but Willow Nightingale takes out Tekla before she can use her belt, and she does the bounce, which was pretty good, guys, with the bounce. Then we had Jay White versus Clark Connor, which I thought was a fine match for what it was. I enjoyed it still, guys. I thought it was a fine match for what it was. Some people didn't like it, but I thought it was a fine match for what it was. But let's talk about it. So Jay White then makes his way to the ring with David Finley shillelagh in his hand and stuff. So let's talk about it, guys. The bell rings and Clark Hunter slides out of the ring, and Jay White sets up for a Blade Runner on him when he gets back inside. But Clark Hunter offenses it and delivers a hammer and a sense elbow to the back of White's neck. And White wears down Connor's arm, but Connor spears him through the middle rope to send White crashing into the entrance rep spine first. Then back from the break, Connor lights a match and uses it to burn White's shoulder with. And then he hits White on a chair and charges at him, but White moves out of the way, and Clark Hunter is sending crashing into the ring chair. Then the two men return into the ring, and White delivers a DDT to Connor, and Connor runs over White with a shoulder bounce, but White lands a inch wrench on Connor, and Connor sets up for a spear on White, but White looks Connor coming and catches him in a standing triangle on him, and then he takes it to the mat, and Connor taps out. Connor taps out, and Jay White won by submission, and that's what happened right there, guys. Then after the match, David Finley appears and hits Jay White with his shillelagh, and the rest of the Bang Bang gang runs out to confront with Jay White with some backup. Then we head backstage where Pac and Claudio attack Christian Cage and Adam Copeland, and Pac looks also again. Pac lands a curb stomp on Adam Copeland on top of a road case. I'll say it again, on top of a road case, and does a curb stomp on Adam Copeland. Then we had the main event with Divine Dominions fences Sisters of Sin in a no DQ match for the AEW Women's World Championship, which I thought this was a fun match, guys. This was a fun match. Let's talk about it. So Sky Blue and Julie Hart step up on Megan Bain and Lena Cross with a pair of candlesticks, and the bell rings, and Hart and Blue repeatedly crack the candlesticks across Cross and Megan Bain's spine, and Sisters of Sin and the Divine Dominions crash out of the ring, and Hart lands a cannonball off the ring apron to level Megan Bain onto the outside, and Sisters of Sin grab a table from underneath the ring and set it up onto the outside, and Blue hits Megan Bain. I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to take my dog for a walk. It might take about 20 minutes or so. I'll be right back. Okay, I'll be back. Back now, guys. Sisters of Sin grab a table from underneath the ring and sets up onto the outside, and Blue hits Megan Bain and Lana Cross with a candlestick as Julia Hart has Lana Cross strapped into a Sin submission hold, and Julia Hart accidentally hits Sky Blue with a screwdriver in hand, and well, aiming for Megan Bain, and Julia Hart dumps Megan Bain onto the outside, and she walks through the top rope and looks to land a Hurricanrana on Lena Cross, but Lena Cross catches her and sends her crashing into a chair and hold into place across the top rope. But Megan Bain, I'll say it again, by Megan Bain, and Megan Bain delivers a back suplex to Sky Blue, then throws a chair into her as a second chair has been stacked on top of Sky Blue. Back from the break, then Blue and Hart powerbomb Megan Bain through a table on top of the entrance ramp, and Blue and Hart rock Cross with a series of forearms. I was thinking of forearms, and then rocks her with a super kick. And Blue and Lana Cross and change forearms with one another. But Megan Bain runs over Sky Blue with a running knee. Then Hart and Blue land a DDT on Megan Bain and Lana Cross on top of their Artist of Stardom championship belts, and Cross sits Blue on top rope as Megan Bain lands a suplex on Julia Hart onto the outside, but Sky Blue rocks Cross with a shin kick as Cross teeters on the rope, and Megan Bain comes with Blue's aid, then sends her crashing through the table that still onto the outside, and but Julia Hart straps Megan Bain into an octopus, and Megan Bain counters into a tombstone on Julia Hart, then delivers a double choke slam to her with Lena Cross for the win, and that's how they won with a double choke slam. I love the whole spot with Sky Blue and stuff with the table as well, guys. That was pretty good as well with Sky Blue getting that table spot, and then that whole spot on top with the entrance ramp and stuff with that as well, with Megan Bain and Lena Cross as well, which was pretty good as well, guys. And that was fun as a main event. You know what I'm saying? Of the show right there. Then we had this as the statement to close the show with Kenny Omega and John Moxley and Will Ospreay versus the Don Callis family. You know what I'm saying? Right here, guys. Which I thought that was the main event, but this was the main event right here. I'm thinking about probably the other week because there's so many weeks that go through my mind. So yes, guys, probably this was the one I'm talking about is the other one that I talked about last week. But yeah, yeah, that was the one with Mercedes Monet. Yeah, now I remember. That was the one with Mercedes Monet and Willow Nightingale on them. My bad. My apologies. My apologies, guys. Yeah, this was the main event. Now I remember. This was the main event with Kenny Omega and John Moxley and Will Ospreay versus the Don Callis family. Let's talk about this, guys. Which this was really fun. I'm really happy that Brian Cage is getting showcased more. Like I said, I'm happy that the dude is getting showcased more on Dynamite and Collision. I would love to see him be world champion in the future, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see where time tells. But yeah, guys, let's carry on and talk about this main event of July 22nd. So Kenny Omega and John Moxley and Will Ospreay took on the Don Callis family with Don Callis and Will Ospreay and Inchasero begin the action. The bell rings and the two lock up, and Kenny Omega tags in and delivers a double axe handle to Inchasero's arm as Ospreay holds him in place, and Will Ospreay takes back and essentially takes out to John Moxley, who continues to target Inchasero's arm, and Will Ospreay tags back in and takes out to Omega and holds Inchasero in place for Omega to deliver a double axe handle to Inchasero off the middle rope. But Moxley and Jay do say I call him Jake something. Jake something tags in, and Jake something fires off stumps on John Moxley, but John Moxley delivers a dive to Jake something through the bottom rope to take him out onto the outside, and John Moxley dumps Jake something back inside the ring, but Jake something sends John Moxley crashing into the ring corner spine first and fires off shoulders on Moxley's midsection, and Brian Cage then catches Omega and Ospreay with a doubles suplex back from the break, and Omega delivers a moonsault to Brian Cage off the rope, and Will Ospreay flies over the top rope to level Jake Ducey, also again Jake Dosey, also again Jake Dosey onto the outside, and Omega delivers a Snapdragon suplex to Brian Cage onto the ring, into the ring, also again into the ring, and sets it up for another one on into zero, but for a pin. But Omega kicks out as Ospreay regroups with Moxley onto the outside, and Jake Dozy and Brian Cage get Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega up for a powerbomb, and as Injaciro ascends to the top rope and Moxley strips Injaciro, allowing Omega and Ospreay to escape Moxley, and sends Injaciro crashing into the middle turnbuckle face first before Ospreay and Omega deliver a hiding blade feed trigger combination to Injaciro for the win. And Kenny Omega and John Moxley and Will Ospreay won that match and defeated the Don Callis family. And I thought, which was a great main event. Then, after the match, Omega and Moxley get another face, and the Young Bucks appear and begin brawling with Ospreay and Moxley as Jake Dozy tries to sneak up on Omega, and Omega fires him off, but Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero look to attack him, and Omega levels both men with a Snapdragon suplex and sets up for a free trigger but Kevin Knight takes out Kenny Omega and sends tall above him, and he holds up the AEW World Championship and TNT Championship belt, standing tall above Kenny Omega as the show went off air. And yes, guys, that was the go home show to Redemption. And like I said again, guys, I thought it was a great show, and I gave that show a 10 out of 10. Yes, like it was an excellent go home show. Like I gave that show a 10 out of 10. It was an excellent go home show. You guys can put your I appreciate everybody stopping in back and forth like I always say. So yes, guys, I'll be back and we'll talk about TNA and stuff and talk about how TNA's been and stuff. So yes, guys, which I think TNA's been okay, but there's some matches that I like. In my opinion, there's some weeks that it's decent, some weeks it's you know what I'm saying. But anyways, I'll be back, guys. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit those notification bells. As always, this is CJD 2006. Peace out and take care and much love, and we're out.